My to-do list is a mile long, and I never have enough time to do it all. No matter how hard I work, I never seem to get everything done. And then I feel guilty that I'm not working hard enough. I keep getting distracted by things that aren't on my to-do list, then rushing to catch up. Any of that sound familiar? Members of our community have said those exact words when I've asked about your struggles when it comes to time and getting things done. And today on the Bold Life podcast, I'll explain one of the biggest contributors to an overloaded to do list, saying yes to everything and feeling guilty saying no. I'll walk you through why it's so hard to say no, even if you're already totally stretched thin, and 3 steps to start getting comfortable setting boundaries and saying no to that extra work. Okay, let's dive in. A while back, I was on a coach call with a client. Super hardworking and successful woman, killing it in her career, but burning herself out in the process. And we were talking about productivity strategies to rein in her massive to do list. And she was doing a lot of the right things. She was pre planning her days to stay on track, using her schedule, batching tasks to save resources, all the good things we talk about on the show. But she was still burning out, feeling defeated and depleted. So we took a closer look at her days. And she walked me through her day, all the tasks she actually got completed, and she'd gotten to at the end of her checklist every day. One day, she'd actually checked everything off. And so I asked her what she did after she checked all the boxes for the day. She paused, looked at me with a confused look on her face, and said, "Well, I started on tomorrow's list, of course." If you've been following the show for a while, you know I have some pretty animated facial expressions. I had a colleague once tell me she hates presenting in front of me because my concentration face always comes across like this doesn't make sense, and she would start questioning everything she was saying. And I'm pretty sure my face when my client said she just starts working on tomorrow's list was a little bit of a cringe. You might be thinking right now, but Nicole, if I'm super efficient and I get everything done with time to spare, isn't that a great opportunity to get ahead? Yes, but you knew that was coming, right? Here's the problem with immediately moving on to the next thing. We set goals and deadlines for a reason. They're great motivators for your brain. You have your priority to do list for the day, and that keeps your brain motivated. Part of the way we make those priority lists mean something for our brain is by celebrating when you get it done. That's the point of making lists and making priorities. Why else would you make them if you're going to immediately move on to the next thing at work, right? The message that sends your brain is that it's never enough. No matter how much work I do, it's never enough. I'm never working hard enough. And those thoughts, my friend, are energy vampires that leave you feeling burned out. If I finish my checklist but don't take even a moment to feel proud of myself, to notice that accomplishment, my brain learns I always have to keep working. That if I'm not working, something's wrong. And that leads to a lot of bad habits that are actually really hard on our brains and on our bodies. Bad habits like saying yes to everything and feeling guilty saying no. One of the biggest contributors to an overloaded to do list is taking on things that your inner people pleaser or your inner perfectionist says you should do. If you're feeling stretched thin, trying to juggle a million things at once, or if you never get to the actual things on your to do list because something always seems to come up that needs your immediate attention, you might have a problem saying no. In our world that values being busy and where we have certain expectations for ourselves about what it means to work hard, saying no can feel uncomfortable. It's a skill and it takes practice because you've learned to say yes all the time. Yes to others and yes to yourself. Yes, I can help you with that project while I also send emails for work and think about how I'm going to get my kids to dance and soccer and baseball tonight. And yes, when I finally get home, I can make supper while helping my kids with school and checking more emails and doing dishes and the laundry. Sound familiar? The problem is by saying yes and trying to do it all, You've trained your brain that it's normal to say yes to everything, so it doesn't feel very good to say no. There are two mental habits that make it feel a bit icky to say no: your inner perfectionist and your inner people pleaser. Let me explain, starting with your inner perfectionist. So, say someone asks you to take on an extra project at work, or maybe to help with a school fundraiser, or to watch your friend's cat, or book an appointment for your technology challenge parents. And the inner perfectionist jumps in with a ton of thoughts that make you feel guilt or like you're not working hard enough if you say no. If I say no to that work project, it means I'm not talented enough to hack it, or smart enough, or I'm not working hard enough, or whatever enough. If I say no to my kids, I'm not a good enough mom. I'm never going to be able to do all this. How come everyone else makes it seem so easy? I must be the problem. That inner critic keeps pressuring you to be perfect all the time. And saying no feels like a weakness, like you're not good enough. So you say yes because saying no feels like a failure. Even though you know you'd rather say no, that inner mean girl or guy guilts you into saying yes. The other mental habit that makes it so hard to say no is your inner people pleaser. It's actually biologically ingrained in our brains to worry about what other people think. It kept our ancestors safe. They needed people to like us so that we could work well in groups, right? Our brains evolved to care what other people thought of us, to worry about what others might think. A few thousand years ago, we needed everyone to like us, or we'd get kicked out of the cave and have to fend for ourselves against the giant animals. Even though our brains have changed a lot over the past 300,000 years, those base fears still drive our actions or hold us back from taking action. Someone asks you to do extra work, and your inner people pleaser jumps in to say things like, "What might my spouse think if I say I need help with things around the house, or I say no to those extra chores? What would my coworker say if I say no when they ask me to stay late or take on an extra project? I might upset that friend if I say no when she asks me to hang out tonight, even though I'm totally swamped right now." We feel guilty saying no, and that's caused by our inner people pleaser because of our fear of rejection, which is really strong for our brains. We want other people to like us. When we say no, we worry we're going to upset someone or they won't like us anymore. And that means we say yes, even when we want to say no. If you take nothing else away from this episode, remember this: every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. I'm going to say that again because it's so important. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, usually to your own well being. Saying yes to staying late at work means no, I can't pick up my kids from school on time. Yes to bringing work home means no to watching your favorite show and relaxing. Yes to helping with that school bake sale means no to going to the gym or exercising. And you can guess where always saying yes to everything leads: to burnout for both your brain and your body. Your brain can only take on so much. It's a finite resource. We all have so much time in the day, and that's it. When you say yes to everything, your time is being eaten up by the things that drain your resources. So you stay up late, or you get up early, or you grab McDonald's on the way home because there's no time to cook, and you sit at your desk for 10 hours because there's no time for a break or exercise. And your body burns out. Your sleep quality declines, you feel tired, you might gain weight, you're more likely to have aches and pains, tension, and all of this builds up. And that physical burnout can take up even more of our mental resources. Your brain starts going all the time, your mind is racing with all the things you need to get done, and that giant to-do list, which makes it really hard to focus. So you make mistakes. You're not doing your best work, and you're jumping around from task to task all day, leaving you feeling overwhelmed, depleted, a little bit cranky, and maybe a bit resentful about everything you've been asked to do. When you say yes to everything, you're not doing your best. You're not giving your best to you or to anyone else. So, what do? How do you start saying no without feeling guilty? How do you train your brain to feel comfortable being proud when you finish your to-do list and to keep those boundaries in place for your time and your energy? Here are 3 steps I use to start saying no without feeling horrible or like you're failing. Step number 1, be clear on your priorities. This is a really important step. One of the reasons we say yes all the time is we aren't super clear and honest with ourselves about where our priorities are right now. Hint, your priorities can change. Start broad. Ask yourself, what's my big goal right now? What am I working towards? Maybe something related to your health, work, family. Then ask yourself, how do I want to be able to show up in that area? When you're super clear on where your priority is right now, it's a lot easier to say no to things that fall outside those priorities. Step number 2, use a script and have a plan. When we're caught off guard, it's really tough to say no, and our default is to say yes. Having a plan for how you're going to handle those extra requests makes it way easier for your brain. I like to have a script I use when I get requests, something like this. Thank you so much for thinking about me for this project. Unfortunately, I'm not taking on any new projects right now because of my other commitments. This sounds super simple, I know, but there's some real science behind why it works. First, you say thanks, which lets the person asking know you appreciate their time, and it helps appease that inner people pleaser who wants to do everything. Then you're giving a reason for saying no. A broad one is okay. That will appease your inner perfectionist who wants to do it all. And we all know that people are more likely to agree if you give a reason. Step number 3, follow through. Stick to it. This is the most important step. Stick to your guns. If you say no, then later you feel guilty and you say yes, you just come across as wishy-washy and your brain is wasting even more resources. Plus, your brain won't believe you the next time you say no. It's just going to have learned that you'll go back on your word later anyway and say yes. If you had a friend that was always changing their mind about helping out, how would you feel? Not great. So don't do it to yourself. This episode is brought to you by my free 5-part training, Confidence Bootcamp. For anyone who wants to confidently take action every day towards their goals without instantly doubting yourself, being certain you did it wrong, and stressing about what everyone else will think. Each day for 5 days, you'll get a video training from me and a worksheet with some practical strategies to start pushing past that self-doubt, perfectionism, and that inner people pleaser so you can take confident action towards your goals. Just head to drnicolebyers.com/bootcamp to sign up. That's drnicolebyers.com/bootcamp. Okay, let's do a quick summary of what you've learned today, because it was a lot. It's hard for your brain to say no to extra work because you're inner perfectionist and your inner people pleaser. Your brain is designed to want to succeed and to care what other people think. So we take on way too much and say yes to everything because saying no makes us feel like we're failing or letting someone down. But every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And that's a quick path to burnout. To start building confidence saying no, have a plan, use your script, and be consistent. Saying no is a skill, but like learning anything new, it gets easier with practice. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Nicole Byers, and this is the Bold Life Podcast.